Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And you thought the Olympic break was going to stop us, was going to curtail us, was going to make us forget about doing shows until the Wild comes back. You know what? We don't take a break. It's the National Hockey League season. And more importantly, the Olympics are actually starting for the men on Wednesday. The women's games are ongoing right now. The U.S. has won their first two. But a lot to get to as far as the Team USA. We've got lines. And a lot to get to as far as the expectations with that team. But before we do that, I want to tell you about my expectation every time that I go to Parlor. And that is that I'm going to get a burger that is absolutely fantastic. That's right. You know it. The iconic Parlor burger is one of the best in town. If you were to name 3 stars of burgers in the state, I think Parlor, number one. If you're going to a Wild game, right down West 7th Street. If you're going to the downtown area in Minneapolis, of course, there is the OG Parlor in the North Loop. And then the newest edition, which started, I think it was last June, in Excelsior on Water Street. Parlor has the great burgers, but they have so much more as well. It's a great place to go enjoy an evening, a great place to go enjoy a lunch. We're also talking about great craft cocktails and a beer list. Absolutely the place to hang out. And if you're watching this right now, you're seeing a QR code. Why are you seeing that? Because if you scan that QR code, you can make a reservation now. There's that burger. What a beauty. Give it a try. And it's a great place to pregame if you are going to be going to a Wild game. And the schedule will get hot and heavy when they get back. Plenty of games left. And before we get to Team USA age, why don't you tell the people about the growth, the rise of Judd's Hockey Show, the YouTube channel?
Yeah, much like the Wild, started off slow this year, bad first month, and then they really hit their stride. Similar to Judd's Hockey Show with the brand new channel, we kind of have had that growth as well, and that's thanks to not just Jesse joining us, helping us pump those numbers, but also the listeners, the viewers, you watching, listening to this right now. If you're subscribed, we want to thank you so much for that. But also, I see the stats. I see the analytics. YouTube says, hey, there's a lot of viewers, but also a lot of them aren't subscribed. So if you haven't done that, this is your opportunity to do so. There might be a lull. There might be no Wild hockey for the next 3 weeks, but that doesn't mean you don't have to hit subscribe and tune into Judd's Hockey Show on the brand new Judd's Hockey Show YouTube channel. We're coming up on 2,500 subscribers. If we hit that goal by the end of the Olympic break, that'd be pretty great. But it's been a great first month on the new channel here. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so. Just click that subscribe button right below the video.
Indeed, it has. So the U.S. team is now practicing at the Olympic Games. So the men's hockey tournament, as I said, will begin on Wednesday. A couple of games: Slovakia, Finland, Sweden, Italy. Group C is the group that the U.S. is in age, and they're going to play in their first game Latvia at 2:10 Eastern. Or I'm sorry, 2:10 our time, 3:10 Eastern on Thursday. I'm getting this all goofed up. I'd like to apologize. Latvia versus the U.S. at 2:10 Central Time on Thursday. A couple of things. One is, let's get to the line combinations first, okay? Because I think it was Russo of The Athletic, who's there in Italy, tweeted out the first 2 lines.
Yes.
And the defensive pairings, the third and fourth lines aren't official yet, but they're projected. So let's go through these. Very Jesse Pierce-like, line heathen-like. The first line is Austin Matthews, who is the captain of this team. I don't know if I like that. But anyway, Austin Matthews is the captain.
He's the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Judd. What are you talking about?
Exactly the point. There's two leadership things I'm struggling with, okay? One is that the captain of the Maple Leafs, who took over from John Tavares, who was probably a more suited captain. It was more of a passing of the torch in Toronto. But, the Maple Leafs aren't exactly what I would say being guided in a great way. The second question I've got is especially after his going into the Olympic break press conference, JT Miller, the captain of the Rangers, who I don't know what his problem is, but he's supposedly this great chemistry guy, and he's basically said, I don't know what we can do here. And now he's on the U.S. team because he's a chemistry guy. And I'm looking at, I don't know, Cole Caulfield, Jason Robertson. I'm looking at a lot of young guys that I would have preferred. And then I got a guy, well, he's great in the room saying, I don't know about this team. And he's the freaking captain of the Rangers, but I digress. Austin Matthews at center, Jake Gensel on the left wing. And here's the kicker. Matt Boldy is your first line right wing. First line.
Wow.
We see you, Boldy. And you know what? Based on his Four Nation success, based certainly on how he's played this season, 30 goals? I think he deserves it. But what do you think of that first line? Matthews, Gensel, Boldy.
I mean, I love it. I can't wait to see Matt Boldy playing on that top line. I kind of love that for all the discourse surrounding this team. And Robertson snubbed, Caulfield snubbed. They're taking Matt Boldy and saying, you know what, whether you like it or not, he's going on that top line. He's going to be put on a pedestal, and you're going to watch Matt Boldy be a superstar on the Olympic setting. I like it, frankly. I think I'm curious to see what he's able to do with Jake Gensel and Austin Matthews. I mean, I'm not saying that his line with the Wild by any means doesn't measure up to that, but Austin Matthews is absolutely a step above and when it comes to a center-wise upgrade than Joel Eriksson. It's not as much of a defensive game, but that's where I think it's going to be interesting because what's the mentality and the role of this line? Matt Boldy has been fantastic being a two-way power forward with a scoring touch.
Score goals, baby.
Exactly. But now it's you don't have, and this is maybe me getting way ahead of myself, but is this mentality going to come back to the Wild where he's going to be told for 3 weeks, score, score, score. We don't care about defense. That's not your job. And then is he going to come back and have that score, score, score mentality? And I would love him to score more goals. I want him to get up to 50, but I need that defensive game to still be showing here. I don't know if Austin Matthews, Jake Gensel, that's an NCHC boy.
It's a great story.
But Austin Matthews, it's interesting there. He's fully healthy now. It seems like he had a really slow start to the season, and there was a lot of not confirmed stuff, but just rumors and speculation that he was dealing with an injury. I think the last month before the Olympics, he's really taken off and looked more like himself.
He got hot, yeah. In fact, I think I was watching the game where he scored a couple of goals, and that sort of opened up the geyser. And I mean, yeah, he is talented. I don't know he'd be my captain on this team, but he is talented. And the Boldy thing too. So here's a spinoff of your Boldy point, and I'm not for 1 second taking away from the fact that line with Eriksson Ek, who of course is going to be playing on Team Sweden, and Marcus Johansson, who is now on Team Sweden as an injury replacement, has been fantastic. But John Hines is an assistant coach to Mike Sullivan on this U.S. team, and here's my question. And he's seen it before, but if Boldy does what they want, at some point, don't you have to look at putting him with, if this works as well as it might work, don't you have to look at putting him, depending on what you do with Kaprizov, more and more? And I'm not saying it has to be full time, and it does feel like at leverage moments sometimes, high pressure, that they pair them. But if Matt Boldy goes bonkers here, and he's already having a great season, but you see him, with this type of talent, starting to score more goals or just look offensively dynamic. And again, he's looked fantastic. I just wonder if there might be more of a temptation to replace Zuccarello more often with Boldy on that wing, because it would just intrigue me.
Yeah, no, it does.
It
for
would
me
just intrigue me more and more to go with that sort of, more frequent, basically what the Oilers do. Draisaitl and McDavid aren't line mates, but it feels like they're together these days a lot more than Boldy and Kaprizov are.
It intrigues me too. The only pushback I would have is I think having them separated allows that. It feels like there's more depth to that Wild top six. There's not that juggernaut top line where it's going, all in, where if they don't score, well, it's luck of the draw for the next 3 shifts or something like that. Having those guys separated, I think, adds a little bit of multi-purpose where that second line can score, but also they're so good defensively.
Yes.
And this is where you got to give flowers to Marcus Johansson for a guy that I think I was begrudgingly looking onto the line charts before the season. I cannot believe he's going to be getting top 6 ice time. he's shoved it right in my face. Like he has proven me wrong, and I want to apologize to him. That being said, I don't want to see a multi-year contract for him ever
I was
again.
going to say you're not apologizing to this JoJo. You're apologizing to the guy who gets a 3-year contract
Yes.
and takes 2 years off.
But yeah, that second line has been so good. It
right.
makes me very hesitant to break them up. But I think what you're leaning at, which is seeing Boldy top line with other superstars, it probably puts it in the mind of John Hines when they come back, which is, do I go to this earlier? If we're behind middle of the second, do I juggle it up and get them out there together earlier instead of like mid to late third period? That'll be interesting to watch. But I don't think this, despite how good or bad he potentially plays, I don't think that automatically shifts the Wild's lines drastically.
Agreed. Second line, Jack Eichel at center, of course, of the Vegas Golden Knights. Brady Tkachuk on the left wing. Matthew Tkachuk on the right wing. This one I'm really interested to see playing in an Olympic environment. So you can't fight. There are going to be National Hockey League referees. I have no idea how the rule book will be applied here. Like, that's my biggest question. Like, are they going to go IIHF? Because if they do, the Tkachuk's act becomes sort of an issue at times. Mm-hmm. They're going to take penalties. If they side more towards what you get in the National Hockey League, it shouldn't be as bad. This line is full of a spunk for sure, but I am very curious to see, especially with them on the same line potentially, how their style of game plays out in a true Olympic environment, if indeed that's what we get.
This is my hesitation about Team USA. I think they're the second. They're the second favorite in terms of sports books odds, by a slim margin behind Canada. But this second line to me is kind of a make or break line for them. I based on the Olympic hockey and IIHF enforcement that I know, this line is not going to work in the way that they are hoping it to be.
If they do that, yeah. Now there's going to be some National Hockey League referees, officials there. So if they turn a blind eye, but that's going to depend on the game, right?
Exactly, and that's where if they turn a blind eye and they're leaning towards more of if they don't call it traditionally like they do in the Olympics, then this line is amazing. This line is going to be a game breaker in a good way, but it could be a game breaker in a bad way if, after a whistle, Brady Tkachuk wants to grab somebody by their collar and feed them a couple just for the sake of trying to get under their skin. You're going to get called for something. You're going to go to the box for 2 minutes. It'll be interesting. I think the first game, and this is where, Judd, you and I have talked about this before, but if I pull it up here, the preliminary schedule for Team USA is so interesting because they don't, nothing against Latvia and Denmark and Germany.
No, it's
Germany's
terrible.
got some stars on there for sure.
Yeah, it's not.
But it's not like it's the toughest preliminary schedule by any means. And so I'm nervous for this team. And you might have had the show set up to get into this at some point, but I'm nervous they're going to be able to kind of cakewalk their way to the medal rounds. Right. And then they face real competition and then they kind of lose their heads.
Yeah, no question about it. Yeah, to your point, in the tournament, Canada is plus 130, which means, of course, if you bet $100, you get 130 back. So you get $30 back. The U.S. is plus 190, which is second. Sweden is plus 500. Finland is plus 1,000. Now, here's the thing. The U.S.'s opponents in their group play stage, Latvia, plus 100,000. Denmark, plus 100,000. Germany, plus 10,000. So, yeah, I mean, Latvia and Denmark, you literally would just have to fall asleep completely to lose. Germany will be tougher, but they're still not great. All right, the third line is Dylan Larkin at center, Tage Thompson of the Sabres on the right, Jack Hughes, who evidently is a full go after being out at the end of, before the break with the Devils with, I believe it was a lower body injury. Jack Hughes on the left. And then the fourth line, Vinny Trocheck, Brock Nelson on the right, Clayton Keller on the left. So your extra forwards are Kyle Connor of the Jets, who is a goal scorer, who is also the extra forward in the championship game against Canada at the Four Nations, which took some criticism and did surprise me. And then, of course, the aforementioned JT Miller.
JT Miller... I'll just say it. I don't care. I don't think he should be on this team.
No,
I don't like him as a hockey player as much. I don't like him as a captain as much. He just, to me, seems like about as close to a locker room cancer as you can have. Whether it's his time in Vancouver, whether it's his time now in New York, him being an extra forward just feels like they wanted to get him along there as a Olympian. Hey, come over here and hang out in Italy for a couple weeks. Maybe I'm totally wrong, and maybe people love JT Miller a lot more than I do. That's still the most baffling decision on this roster.
He might just accept being scratched, and they were afraid that Caulfield. But I mean, I just don't get it. I'm with you on this. I don't understand why he's on the team.
Kyle Connor being a scratch is super interesting because have you not learned anything from the Four Nations? And granted, this is different. Then this should be officiated and look like a different game than the Four Nations. But you lost the game where you scratched him. It's hard to fathom another situation where they need goal scoring, and then unless he's dealing with something and it's okay, we know you're going to be healthy and ready to go by the medal rounds, and we're just going to leave you out for the preliminaries because we just talked about, the schedule is not super tough. Not having him in the lineup to me is interesting, but I'm sure if they're thinking he's a goal scorer, they've kind of built this team where the bottom two lines aren't built to have just goal scorers.
Correct.
Maybe he doesn't fit the role and the mindset that they want. So I don't know. Maybe they'll get fresh legs in later as the schedule goes. But it is a little perplexing to me that he is not in the lineup right now.
And I guess that in fairness, because I like him, and I think in a tournament like this, scoring is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. But in fairness too, the third and fourth lines I just gave you are projected lines. But, okay, third line. Dylan Larkin, Jack Hughes, Tage Thompson. You going to scratch one of them? Probably not. Yeah. Fourth line, Trocheck, Brock Nelson, Clayton Keller. And that projection is a line that very much is not, that's going to play a role. Yeah. So I get that. But, yeah, I don't know. In the first 3 games, you're probably right, especially the first 2. You probably afford to scratch a guy that can score goals. I also would assume, again, unfortunately, someone is going to get hurt here. So,
right.
I mean, Matt Tkachuk gets hurt constantly. So,
the fact that he's playing is interesting.
I'll be shocked if he survives the tournament because he plays reckless and he's always hurt. So, anyway.
Well, did you see, this is maybe a week ago now, Pierre LeBrun's, he was on a podcast and he made a comment about how he's kind of heard that some of the guys at the Olympics here are pretty much just hanging on final strings and
including Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, and then they're going to get shut down after the Olympics due to injury, and guys were just so that he didn't name names, he didn't name teams or nations or anything like that. But I'm curious to see after the Olympics how many of these guys all of a sudden, hey, they picked up something in a practice as soon as they got back, and now we got to shut them down for a month.
Yeah, according to, I think it was also last week in The Athletic, what Russo wrote, Quinn Hughes is dealing with a lower body injury that he's had since Vancouver that he's playing through. And now they're trying to also, I guess, in John Hines' case, weigh how much he should play once he gets back, which is ridiculous. This is all, but I mean, it's a fun tournament. It's great until your entire season is blown. But that's the National Hockey League, and the players wanted this, so don't forget that. Okay, let's go through the defensive pairings because there's at least one thing locally that's interesting here. The top pairing, not surprising, Quinn Hughes, Charlie McAvoy. The second pairing, Jacob Slavin, Brock Faber, which was the pairing last year that did such a good job. Jacob Slavin, a masterful defensive defenseman. The third pairing is Zach Werenski and Noah Hannafin of the Vegas Golden Knights. And the fourth pairing, Jake Sanderson of Ottawa, Jackson Lacombe, the former golfer of the Ducks. Now, there was a lot of feeling because Hughes and Faber have been partnered here, Age, that they might just stick with that Sullivan might stick with that pairing because it's been so effective. Mm-hmm. They're not going to stick with it according to what they've started doing in practice and indeed put Slavin back with Faber and Hughes with McAvoy. What are your thoughts on going away from a pairing that was clearly working to go back to one, I guess, that worked last year? And don't forget, in the Four Nations, Hughes did not play because of injury.
I'm fine with this. The Wild have not the luxury of Team USA where they have this stacked defensive core. If you break it up, you're going to put a guy, like Brock Faber with, Jake Middleton or something like that.
Right.
Which, nothing against Jake Middleton, but he's not Jacob Slavin. He's not Charlie McAvoy. So Hughes McAvoy's fantastic. I think that top pairing I would love it if Quinn Hughes was healthy, because then that's a totally different pairing in my mind. But Hughes McAvoy is great, and then Slavin is just so solid defensively. For the for the sake, selfishly, of Brock Faber PR and everything like that, having a guy that is so solid defensively next to him is going to make him look incredible. And this is where, after the Four Nations last year, Brock Faber and Matt Boldy came back, and they both clearly elevated their game, and they took stuff that they had from here. And you got to remember that he's 23. Jacob Slavin's 21 or 31, excuse me, 31.
Yeah.
He's going to be able to take something from a veteran who, frankly, if he projects and continues to raise this ceiling and be as good defensively, or not even as good, but continue to project out to where maybe he closes the gap on a guy like Jacob Slavin, that does a lot for the Wild. I'm fine with this pairing. And it's not like they're stealing something from us, because we see them night in, night out playing together, Hughes and Faber. So it's not like I'm being robbed of never being able to see them. I can live with this for 3 weeks.
And McAvoy, here's my question. Much like with Tkachuk, does he stay healthy? His face is the size of a freaking beach ball now, because he took that cheap shot against the Panthers, I think. And he's a hell of a player. But man, he got hurt badly. And there was controversy about how it was handled in the Four Nations. And he's been hurt again this season with this thing. So I have real questions. Like, if I was to take advantage of all of the betting that goes on, the prop bets that goes on, I would actually set a line on who gets hurt from teams. And Matt Tkachuk and Charlie McAvoy are my two top guys to probably get hurt on the U.S. team. All right, let's conclude this episode on goaltenders. Connor Hellebuyck is the goaltender from the Four Nations last year. He was spectacular for the last, couple of years before this one with the Jets. Last year, he was just outstanding. Yeah. He lost the championship game of the Four Nations in part because, as he is wont to do in huge games, Jordan Binnington of the Blues, who's had a terrible season, stood on his head for Team Canada. Jake Ottinger of Lakeville from the Stars, and Jeremy Swayman from the Bruins. I know that these first two games aren't on paper difficult, but if you were to gear up a guy and say, we're going to ride this guy in the Olympic tournament for the USA, trying to win a gold for the first time since 1980, who would you ride from Hellebuyck, Ottinger, Swayman?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to sit down Jeremy Swayman and say, you get real company in that tracksuit, because I don't think you're going to be on the bench too much. I'm going to have Ottinger on the bench backing up Connor Hellebuyck every single game. Until Connor Hellebuyck shows me otherwise. The pedigree there, the history there, he is, for my money, still the best goaltender in the world when he wants to play at his best, and you see that quite a bit with the Jets. He doesn't have that big game feel. There's that narrative that he can't show up for the biggest moments, so at least for the preliminary rounds and into the medal rounds, I'm going to go with him. But if you're seeing that kind of faltering, you get a good practice in and maybe see if Jake Ottinger wants to take over the reins. But Connor Hellebuyck, this is about as easy of a decision. And this is, for as much as there was discussion about the forwards and some of the defensemen and the snubs potentially, the goalies are just fine. You're going to ride Connor Hellebuyck until the cows come home.
Thursday, Latvia, in goal for me, Jake Ottinger.
Really?
I'm going with the Otter.
Going
with the Otter. The Otter, goaltending sort of a gut feeling at times. And you know what I'm always curious about too? I'm always curious about confidence. Like Hellebuyck's had a rough season. It's like Binnington's on the Canadian roster and he's a big game specialist, but he's had a terrible season. And I'm always curious about can you just sort of forget that and look, it's the Olympics, I get that. But I think it is time for Jake Ottinger to get his chance in the spotlight. So I think you're probably right. I think I'm probably going to be proven not necessarily wrong, but not right about this. But I would go with Ottinger in goal. Very controversial. I'm going with the local kid, damn it.
I've got one thing before we wrap up for you.
Yeah,
this is from Michael Russo. I know we're short on time, but he said, Team USA photo just took place, and then they did specific team photos. They did brother photos, family photos, national development team photos. He says, quote, hilariously, Vinny Trocheck jokingly acted as if he was going to join the Minnesota Wild player and staff photo. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that's great. Bill Guerin's been chatting him up. He's the U.S. GM. Here's what I would say. Vinny, you're a possibility, but get out of that photo because I don't know it's going to be you.
Do you think he just wants out of that so bad? Out in
Everyone
New
wants
York
out.
so
That's
bad.
why. What's JT Miller doing there? That's my point. What is JT? So somebody gets hurt. People are going to get hurt. JT Miller, I mean, he's okay, but what are we doing? Why are we going? I understand you want to build a fourth line that is, more serviceable, right? And so, but, if you get enough guys hurt, do I want JT Miller, who's been bitching and moaning all season, or do I want a guy that I see as more prolific? I want the guy who's more prolific. Anyway, that's just me. We are done. Several shows this week. In fact, if you're around on Thursday, I think we should do a live show immediately after the first game.
I'll see why
It's
not.
at 2:10 our time. So
Perfect.
The start times are for all three games, I think, are 2:10. Absolutely love this. It's fantastic. So yes, Judd's Hockey Show focusing on the Olympics. Don't forget to subscribe to our new channel. We appreciate that. We appreciate you. Jesse Pierce will join on Wednesday. But for now, he's AJ. I'm the Sports Dad, and we're done.